Previously on the Novympia channel.
I love this. We're so old and shit.
And coming up.
And the United Kingdom gets, from the public, 0 points.
I find you very rude. The Novympia channel is made possible by our gorgeous patrons, and it's 12 points to our brand new patrons: Neve, Syme, Torsey, Jay Eggman, Aiden C, Russ Cummings, Charis, Anna, Pebbles, Ashen Pfeffer, Shahin, Joseph, Chip Metal and Dalen Hope. Start the shit show. Oh, hello there.
Bam, 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 bam.
This crazy energy at Little Chat.
I can't believe
she's always going to be there.
Already.
She's always going to be there. Back of your mind. She's always going to be there.
With this. I did not consent to this.
Welcome to this Novympia treat for your hair.
As we briefly explained in our live stream and our previous video, we are currently in the process of moving house. So another video out of drag, but you don't mind.
They don't mind. In fact, actually, they quite like it.
In fact, you don't mind.
They've said, now fucking listen to me. They've said they love it.
Right.
And there'll be nothing more about it. So today we're going to talk about the aftermath of the Eurovision Song Contest, which
a little bit like a review of the show.
On Saturday, we're going to go through the final running order and talk about like what we think is just kind of like super weird. There's some kind of controversies and stuff that's going to be in there. First and foremost,
it was wild, this show.
It was fucking messy. First and foremost, there's going to be a lot of, you know, we're going to talk about some controversies, some conspiracies, if you will. There's a lot of conjecture. What's that?
That was Damiano.
I thought you were doing Luann de Lesseps. Do you remember at that table when she was like, that's so niche, I'll put in a clip. First and foremost, yes, we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff which may kind of like bleed into the discussion surrounding politics or surrounding, you know, neighbouring countries, controversies, whatever. All of this is conjecture. This is just our 2 cents. Get into the comment section if you want to discuss. It's a conversation over all this. We are, you know, what we think is not, what's the word?
Law.
Should be. And the other thing that we need to kind of remember going forward is this. I mean, I've personally been watching Eurovision since like 2002, and this is by far the strongest year certainly we've ever watched. It was so strong. So there are a couple of things we need to kind of mention when we go through the running order. Before we get to that though, we just want to have a little moment here. If we can have a moment here.
I just want to make a speech here.
This isn't a sponsored video, but we have been gifted these cute little lapel mics.
Ooh, I believe the term is le voilier.
I beg your pardon?
Le voilier?
What's that?
It's a le voilier microphone. Is that Moldova?
Yeah.
Oh, because that was also Bum Note. So you're very good at impersonating her. Yes, they were gifted to us by Jacqueline Follier.
That's not true.
No, they weren't. They were gifted to us by Niwa. Okay, so here's the deal. Niwa is a company that is one of the leading brands in terms of filming equipment.
They do lighting, they do sound, they do like tripods, any kind of like equipment. So they're a really good go-to if you're kind of like an independent filmmaker or a YouTuber, if you want
our field,
decent professional standard equipment on a budget.
So we've got a ring light, we've got a microphone stand, and now we have these gorgeous lavalier microphones. So the ones they've sent us are the WG60. They do one kind, so it's that one at the moment on their website. So we'll put a link in the description below, but this gorgeous, rich sound you're listening to now comes to you courtesy of Niwa.
We've played around with a lot of different mics in the past. You've probably seen over the last 12 months or so, we've experimented with different types of mics. These are honestly, I think, probably the best ones that we've had. And what is so great is, although each mic goes into its own receiver, Olympia has very cleverly managed to just put a splitter. What's it called? The
like a jack
auxiliary splitter. And now they both work off the same camera, so that's great.
I can't do that thing that the Roop did. I mean, I can do it, but like it's messy to look at. So thank you, Niwa. We'll mention it at the far end as well. There'll be a link in the description as well. If you want to check them out. There's a sale on their website now as well at the moment. So thank you very much.
Get in there.
Let's talk about Eurovision. So,
well, first of all, if you haven't seen our previous video about our favourites prior to watching it, what are you doing here? Go and watch that first, because then you can see how different our opinions have changed. So there'll be a card right now. Go and watch that first.
Our predictions weren't worth shit.
Even if you haven't seen the show and don't care about the show, this video will make much more sense on the back back of our previous Eurovision video.
Our predictions weren't worth shit, and every single year I seem to try to remember that like Eurovision nuts like we are, who spend so long analysing and whatever, really doesn't account for that much, because the general casual viewer takes up a larger percentage of viewers. So really what you think is, I mean, you can make an educated guess, but when we get to certain countries you'll realise, oh okay, that was us overthinking it kind of thing. And every year I try to take a step back and think, no, maybe this isn't going to be how it goes, but then you're still shocked when it happens.
Yeah.
We've had the points now from semi-final 1 and 2 have come through. So for semi-final 1, the big thing people were talking about is like, oh, Croatia. First of all, in terms of people were robbed, they were robbed. No one was robbed. This was the hardest year, I think, in history to compete with.
I would say one country was robbed. Not robbed of the title, but like robbed of
Well, we think
position.
there were 2. We'll get to them, but we think there were 2 that were...
I think I'd safely say one, potentially another.
There were 2 which their results were very, very strange to us. But, you know, the fact that Croatia didn't get in, they literally came 11th, but they lost by 5 points. Do you see how close it is? It's not a case of, oh, they were robbed. Like, it's a case of all the countries above them were so strong. Okay, you might argue maybe Norway shouldn't have done, but it gets to a point.
It's just close. It's so close. The
where it's so
semi-final
close.
1 was also like full of a lot of talent, so it was very close.
The country that came last in semi-final 1 was Ireland.
Again, though, if you were watching that based on that performance and that performance alone, I can understand
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's a bad song, doesn't mean she's a bad performer. She's fantastic. I think she probably deserved more, but I can understand it based on that performance and that performance alone.
Plenty of people, specifically because Ireland was my favourite, plenty of people have messaged me and said, oh, you must feel so terrible. Oh, she was robbed, X, Y, and Z. I don't think she was robbed at all, because I think they gave her far too ambitious staging for that song, and she didn't perform vocally very well. There were some tricky notes in that song that she did not.
It's just, unfortunately, it's just one of those things, because I think she had sounded better previously in rehearsal.
Just sitting on a stool or something.
She'd also said in like look labs and stuff that she was struggling to juggle everything, and she's like on a treadmill at some point. So I guess it was either everything goes smoothly with the performance and the vocal is subpar, or the vocal's perfect and something goes wrong. Like, it's...
I don't know why, when there is a question that comes into play of it's a powerful song, can she deliver it, why you'd put her on a treadmill. It seems like the staging in retrospect was ridiculous. You should have put her
I don't know.
on her
I think
own.
it was just, it needed kind of like the dial just turned down a couple of notches. Like, I think it had a lot of
running
potential.
around was too much.
Yeah, the running I think was too much.
I don't think the flip book worked either. The cutouts, the houses and stuff
brilliant.
worked. The flip book didn't work. It looked messy. I don't think that
should have been done maybe like automated somehow, like a robot do it or something. I think the fact that it was like a thumb doing it stopped a couple of times and they went out of sync, and it was just...
Even the pictures that were drawn on the
weren't
thing,
clear enough,
it just wasn't very effective.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you know, I think for her to come last, she came lower than North Macedonia, I think is tricky. But again, it was a lot they threw at her. And I don't think she was robbed at all. I'm not surprised she didn't get into the final, even though she was my favourite. So North Macedonia was second to bottom. Australia did not do well. But then...
Australia had the entire world against them, though. I'm not surprised they didn't get through. Like we said before, the song was a grower. It wasn't one that instantly gelled with us in the first place. But not only that, it was a pre-recorded performance, like put in via like satellite from across the world. Like, they were always at such a disadvantage.
No one wants a winner that can't be there to accept the trophy. Like, it just wasn't going to work, was it?
For the record, I thought it was a brilliant performance. I think Montaigne looked amazing. I loved the staging. I thought it was as perfect as she could have hoped. I think it was, she couldn't have done more with that song. She did well.
And then Romania was the other one who I think suffered the same problem potentially that Leslie did for Ireland, which was that she was doing a lot of running around. That maybe she didn't need it.
Was unfortunate because everybody was bitching and moaning about the costume as well, her being just in like a fucking tracksuit, and I loved that on the night she kind of came out with this stunning dress, like as a surprise.
Great job, God, it was good, wasn't it good?
And I also think her vocals were the best they had been. It still wasn't good enough. She did a performance, I believe, on the Eurovision channel of this song on like a rooftop.
That was great. God, that was good.
It's the most amazing vocal. She can do it. She's not a bad singer. It's like you said, it's these directors throwing too much at these artists.
A lot. I think it worked a lot better for her, clearly, because she got way more points. I think in Leslie's case, that was a real hard sell. So overall, from the first and second semis, Latvia technically came last overall. Bottom of the pile. Obviously, that doesn't factor in the fact that we don't, like, the big five don't participate, so technically,
yeah,
who knows? But she came last with 14 points, which means
so she didn't come last overall because she still got more points than us.
Yes, but you can't weigh it up against that because we don't know what we would have got if we were in a semi.
I suppose, but she still got points.
But you can't really weigh it up in that way. So technically, overall, she came last, which I'm not surprised because if you think Technicolor was a tricky song, and that was a grower. The Moon is Rising for Latvia is the weirdest song.
I don't actually hate the song. I think the staging was terrible.
But it's very kind of like, you have to kind of get your head around it and meet it halfway. It's not something you can just, I've said this all along, Norway, you just sit there and take it. Like, it's just a pretty song. No one particularly loved it, but it's
But The Moon is Rising, the staging was not good enough. It was just a screen.
Do you know what though? The Moon is Rising got less points than Georgia did. Do you remember Georgia's?
Oh God.
Mountains.
That was bad.
I wanna fuck you.
Stop it.
The point is though, apart from a couple of sort of pointers we can talk about, I think the second semi was all the countries we thought it would be. That was going to be an easy one. Denmark, I think that was too insular. Austria's was probably not very memorable. Estonia's not very memorable. Poland's was, people thought that was dreadful. Poland's?
That was trending on Twitter in the UK.
People weren't happy about that.
How bad it was. Yeah.
So semi-final 2, no real surprises there. Semi 1 though, the points were so close, but it just kind of bears repeating that it was a really strong year. So if we talk about the final then, should we start with...
Should we just start with the United Kingdom to get it out of the way?
Let's get it out of the way.
Because I want to explain something. We want to talk about a lot of things. So the United Kingdom got 0, and there's been a lot of people in the UK saying how disgusting that is. We should not bother going into the Eurovision Song Contest anymore. What is the point? Blah, 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 blah. And I've seen a lot of people say how it wasn't a bad song. I want to counter... I don't even know where to begin. Let's first of all talk about the quality of the song and the quality of the performance in terms of it getting 0 and did it deserve
Was it the worst song of the year? No.
I saw somebody tweet, and I'll go through my likes, and if I can find the screenshot, I'll credit them. But they said, and I thought this was brilliant, the last place slot in Eurovision doesn't go to the worst song, it goes to the most forgettable song.
Yeah.
And this was the most forgettable.
It was just fine, which is the problem. Because if you're voting for your favourite countries, every country votes for their top 10. So technically speaking, the UK could have been 11th in every single one.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you're going to get 11th overall. It means you get nothing because it wasn't in the top 10.
That's not to say that nobody
overall
gave us points individually. Somewhere along the line, we might have been given a few points. In fact, I think there was a country that we placed 11th. I can't remember who it was, and that meant that we were so close to getting 1 point.
But it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So it was, in terms of the performance in the song is not a bad song. It's very, very, in terms of a song competition, it's not memorable. It's absolutely not memorable at all.
There were no surprises from the finale performance compared to when we were talking after seeing the rehearsal performance in our last video. So we're just repeating the fact that not a bad song, not good for him. He struggles to sing it. It's too low, it's too high. The thing that was different from the rehearsals was the outfit. I think maybe even worse. This coat was horrific.
The outfit was tricky.
He looked like a pimp. It was just...
He looked like he was going to sell you a watch from inside his...
Yeah, it was
coat.
it was
weird.
Bad.
Weird.
I also want to say, we get a ticket to the final, whether that is a positive or a negative, that's also a thing that people need to consider and just be grateful for the fact that we get through to the final. I think there's been too many people saying it was better than it was. It was fine. It was below average.
It was fine, and you can really... This is a very unusual year because the bottom 4 countries all received 0 from the televote, and I think since the new system's been introduced, I don't know that a country has received 0 apart from Germany. Maybe there was 1 or 2. Never twice in the same year, certainly not 4, but that speaks to the fact that the top 10 was so strong, everyone was voting for them, and the mediocre ones, why would you bother? That's just what speaks to it.
In terms of who would you put anybody below the United Kingdom based on the finale performance? I've seen a lot of people say Spain and Germany. and Moldova should have been below the UK. And as much as I prefer the UK song over Spain and Germany, I don't think that they deserved worse than the UK. I think they both delivered better vocals, and like Germany had a little bit of choreo. They were better performances overall.
I think the bottom four, though, if you look at the points, 0, 3, 6 and 11. So 3, 6 and 11 means that they were given points from 1, possibly 2 countries. It basically is the same. It's peanuts. It means you were the ones that nobody remembered. People seem to harp on about this nul point thing. Like, it's just the worst thing in the world. Oh, everyone hates us. First of all, I think people would love us to do well. I think it's been a joke now for 2 decades, to the point where people would actually root for us if we sent something that wasn't just the same thing, that's mediocre. It's I don't know, there have been some singers who have come through who maybe are better than others, but the songwriters who aren't performers, James, Suri, even Lucy Jones is a West End kind of, she's a theatrical singer, and
Molly as well. She was a singer-songwriter, not really a performer. Not really a
performer. So, you know, I understand the point is that it's a song competition, so you want the actual songwriter. You don't want like a Katie Price who's going to just send some shit. But then you also need to kind of maybe let them give it to someone else kind of situation, because I think bottom of the rank is perfectly where we should be.
Things could have been very different if James Newman had written this song and given it to another artist.
Give it to someone else.
Give it to another artist. I honestly think we need to stop sending
men in leather coats.
We need to stop sending men.
What's that
We need
about?
to try and send some women again. We need a proper pop star. I think.
Yeah, you need someone who's going to come out with fucking like silver spangly shit.
I don't want, as much as I love the Frock Destroyers and the what was the UK Hun girls called?
United Kingdom.
United Kingdoms. As much as I love them dearly, that is also not the right direction for us to go.
No, you know, obviously in one breath I've just said we should send something which is like super spangly and stuff, but also at the same time, are those queens vocally as strong as sending, you know, someone who is actually kind of a singer first and foremost? And is that also not kind of then leaning into what a lot of people would have criticised Denmark and Norway for, which is sending something which is very, very personal to that country, which may not translate widely? Because you know, drag at Eurovision, obviously Conchita won, but generally speaking, drag at Eurovision goes down badly.
Also, Conchita Wurst is a pop star
She's
first,
a singer
drag
first.
Queen second.
That's the point I think we need to remember. So I think if we were to send the Frock Destroyers, I certainly think we would be given some points, because, you know, there's more appeal.
It's also
more of a show.
It would never be more than a novelty, because Conchita Wurst sent a legitimate song.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic song that could stand on its own without the drag. The last thing I want to say about the UK is this was not political. This was not political. I've seen so many people in the press blame this on Brexit, blame it on that everybody hates us, X, Y,
Well, people
and Z.
here love to play the victim, don't they?
You only have to look at a country like Israel. We don't even need to speak about what is going on with Israel and Palestine at the moment. Israel placed, where did they
were
place?
17th.
17th.
So you might argue that
they got 93 points. That is still towards the bottom. It's significantly better than we did. So that just goes to show how people are capable of removing politics.
Yeah.
It's still present, but you can't say that's the only reason we got
argue
zero.
that they got lower than they would have if they were from a different country, for example.
Yes,
however,
but you cannot
people voted for it. And that's not to say that that song wouldn't have also done differently in a different year. Again, it's because every song higher than that is a banger. Apart from, I mean, I was never in love with Portugal, but that's neither here nor there. But you know what I mean? They're all bangers. So it was just a really difficult year. So the politics thing is horseshit, in my opinion. The other thing is the block voting, people voting for neighbours stuff is also tricky, because that is never going to be something which a country will win for. Greece and Cyprus giving each other 12 points is never going to mean they're both going to win. It doesn't work that way.
But you can also say in terms of the UK that to balance that out, we already get through the semis automatically. So we're already kind of avoiding that to balance it out a bit. Because would we get through in terms of block voting otherwise? I don't know.
You can't crap on Greece and Cyprus giving each other points for it being rigged when Ireland and France didn't give a shit.
Or Australia.
Or Australia didn't
That's
give a
the
shit.
other thing about the
It's
politics.
too mediocre
Our
a song.
close friends didn't give us points.
Didn't give a shit.
So,
and the final thing I think we should talk about, just on that kind of like neighbours voting for neighbours thing, which is, yes, maybe it's because they want to throw each other a bone, but also you have to think in terms of kind of like Greek and Cypriot culture. Is there not kind of a fair amount of crossover in terms of music and culture? And so certain countries would vote for each other naturally
because there's an overlap in
of
interests
music and culture.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense that you would vote for that, because, you know, are we necessarily, when we vote for Ireland, are we necessarily doing that just because they're our neighbours, or is it because someone that we might know of?
It's an accent we recognise.
Yeah, maybe that. But then, you know, it might have been someone who's been on our TV. It might have been someone that we're kind of used to, or it's a sound that we're more kind of like familiar with.
Yeah.
So that's why we would naturally. So a lot of people just flat out saying, oh, it's bullshit, it's politics. If you really break it down, it probably isn't. UK, Spain, Germany, Netherlands, they were all the same, basically. Just they were not memorable enough for people to pick up the phone. And the other thing, just quickly going back to the UK, when people say like, why don't we send Adele? First of all, Adele would have to agree to it. You can't shove her in a crate and send her to the Netherlands. Like, she's never going to agree. These people aren't going to agree to it. But also, sending someone who is an established artist I don't think usually works. France sent Patricia Cass and she didn't win.
It's a combination of...
Cliff Richard didn't win. These people are very big.
If we did send somebody on that level, would the rest of Europe just see that as cheating?
As cheating. Not cheating per se, but...
it is very unfair.
They'd see through it.
Also, what is the incentive for an artist like Adele to compete in a competition like this?
What?
There's no prize. She's as famous can be. It's not well paid.
It would in fact be worse for her.
And she's got the risk of like placing lower than an artist not as successful or not as established. So what is the incentive for these big names? I just think it's a daft way of thinking.
And the other way of looking at it is, okay, we'll send someone who was big and who no longer is. We sent what was that one chick we sent? Oh, Bonnie... Total Eclipse of the Heart woman. Bonnie Tyler. We sent Engelbert Humperdinck. These people were massive at one point. They came like bottom.
They're too far past it.
So the idea of sending, just like forget that, because that, I think, if anything, is detrimental to your score, because people will see through it. So the next one we come to is the one which I think was treated the worst, which is San Marino.
This was quite a shock. Any other year wouldn't be a shock at all for San Marino to place here. In fact, we probably would have said that was very good for them.
I think there's two factors in play here for why San Marino came so low down. First of all, Eurovision nowadays they choose the running order themselves, and okay, there's a lot to be said for they should have done better, but it was, you know, the running order did it to them. Maybe a little bit, maybe not. But San Marino were last, and in my opinion, if you're getting to the point where you're like, oh god, like I want to go to the toilet, when is it all over? Who's on next? Oh, San Marino were the last ones. Oh, we can skip them because people don't even know where San Marino is. That's not me throwing shade at San Marino. They're a microstate. They're inside Italy, so they don't even have neighbours in several countries. People aren't really aware of them. People would automatically think they were going to be garbage because they've sent a lot of very mediocre songs in the past. So the running order, I really do think, crapped on them. But the other thing, which I think people thought was going to work in their favour, I think has actually worked against them, which is Flow Rider. Because people bringing in very internationally acclaimed artists does not always work, because Blue did not do particularly well, certainly better than we usually do.
I don't think that can be compared though.
No, but in Europe, Blue were very big in Europe at one
I still
point.
don't think it can be compared because Blue are British.
Right, yeah, but then, so that leads into my point, is that people might have thought, oh, they're just buying their way to the top by getting in an American artist.
I feel like there's a lot of countries, the UK included, where I'm absolutely fucking shocked we did not give them points, because I think generally speaking, the UK would see Flow Rider and be like, yes.
Love that.
Phone up. I think you're right, the running order played a big part in it. I think there was a lot of pressure on them as well, because they were expected to do very well with the bookies, and I think maybe it was a case of people thought they would do well and didn't vote. I do think there was an element of that.
That always comes into it. I think that Sweden may have suffered a bit of that, is people think, oh, they'll do well naturally, so we don't even have to bother. But to come 22nd, just outside of the bottom 4 that all got 0, is so shocking to me.
I'm surprised.
Because the song is a banger, let's be honest.
I am surprised that they didn't do better with the televote. I would have thought there'd be more votes.
I voted.
There.
I voted
The
for
jury, I'm not surprised at all. This was not a song for the jury. I'm surprised they didn't do better with the televote. And it's just heartbreaking to see Sanit's reaction on camera as well, because she was so shocked. She was so surprised. They were like, oh.
Her mouth just dropped and she didn't stop staring at the screen.
Right.
She was fascinated.
So that's sad. I think it's all understandable though. I can't say that they were robbed exactly. It's just disappointing, and I just feel bad for them. Moving up, there's not really any surprises. We've spoken about Israel. Norway placed kind of where I thought it would. Cyprus was not a surprise to me, but a lot of people were surprised at Cyprus. I think they also suffered because they opened the show, and Albania coming straight afterwards with a very similar outfit, very similar colour scheme. I think that was just fucked up for the pair of them to be right at the beginning.
I don't think anyone in the first kind of 6 countries really is. They're at such a disadvantage, because that's the real killer moment when it's like, oh, the Eurovision Song Contest is on, let's put it on. Oh, what number are they on? Oh, like 5 or 6. Like that is, people have already, or like everyone's getting drinks. I miss Cyprus because I was like running round.
I loved Cyprus. I love Elena. I think she's adorable. She's a fantastic performer. But like I said in our previous video, the song, we like it because we're gay and we like simple things. It's not a good song.
You're a what?
It's so referential.
Very radio friendly though, isn't it?
Yeah.
People like
so
it.
like, I'm not surprised. Like, I think that did as well as it deserved.
You know what? So after like Albania, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Norway, Israel, Cyprus, they all came within like 40 points of each other, which usually the discrepancy would be kind of like different, because like they're all just so good. After that, you've got Serbia, Sweden, Moldova, Portugal, Bulgaria, Greece. They've all got 100 points. It gets to Greece and Bulgaria, who there was a big conversation about which of those would be in the top 10, and they both got exactly the same number of points. So if that doesn't tell you how difficult a year this is, there was always a thing about like which one's going to be in the top 10. Greece has edged them, I think, because of a technicality that they maybe went on first. So that's how they decide that, but they got the same number of points. So essentially, when you kind of consider that, you know, it really is only about like the top 10, which generally speaking...
Can we talk about Moldova first? I've seen people give Moldova such a fucking hard time. During the semi-finals, people hate it. People were not only shocked, they were angry that she qualified. People were really pissed off, and I don't understand it. I understand people's reasons why, but I just don't think it's fair. People are saying like her vocals were shit and the staging was subpar. It was boring, basic staging. That's the only criticisms I'm seeing.
But the staging argument, I don't think applies to the general casual viewer, as I'm referring to them as, because I don't think someone who's watching is going to really start breaking down staging. That's more for like the gays.
And I think most people would have seen this without seeing the music video, so they can't compare.
They wouldn't have known. So there is a bit of a controversy with Moldova. So they actually placed 7th in their semi. They did better. They got more points than Serbia, San Marino and Albania.
I'm not surprised.
Well, I am a little bit, because her performance was a bit rough, but at the same time that you can introduce all these factors, including that she was, it was a bum note, it wasn't particularly visually, I don't know, dazzling or whatever. And then a bit that we'll talk on real briefly about the kind of the Bulgarian, the guy, Kirkorov, the guy, anyway. It's a great song, because how many fucking times we listened to that song to death?
It's a great song. She performed it at least visually flawlessly. The choreography was perfect. It was high energy. It was fun. They all looked great. The backing dancers looked great. It's the kind of song where I understand this isn't the point of the competition, but I would pay to see her lip sync it. I don't care about the vocals.
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
It's all the visuals. It's the music. Like, I would pay to see her lip sync it. Like, I would pay to see Britney Spears lip sync. I level it with that. It's part of the whole thing. So I from that point of view, I can understand why it did well. The vocals were not that bad. Can we calm down? They were not that bad. They were certainly better than they were in the semi-finals. That last note, whilst ridiculous, it's not a bad note. It was on pitch 99% of it. The only thing they had going against them was, unfortunately, there was a moment at the beginning of the second verse where she drops her mic and it's very quickly handed to her again by a dancer. Recovered fine, shit happens. I bet most of you didn't even realise that happened.
I burped a few times during that. I'm just going to get to the point.
I think Moldova is one of these people that people like to hate on her for the sake of it.
Also, you know what I think about her though? There's something about her, the way she smiled and the way she kind of like captured your eye, which was so kind of like girl next door. You want to be kind of like, you want to like go out for drinks with her. She's so cheeky. And
she's flirty.
if you consider that she got more points than Serbia, and you would generally think, okay, but Serbia's YouTube views were astronomically higher. But then, you know, Serbia were very, very full on sex.
That's what I was going to say.
Moldova, she was, but she did it in a way which was very kind of like, I think slightly more appealing because she was toying with people.
Serbia would have alienated the more misogynistic audience a little too much because they're all pumped, they're all extensions, and whilst we love that, I think it was just on the wrong side of the line of what is kind of acceptable, and I think Moldova maybe wasn't towing it as much as they were.
She was a bit cheeky, maybe that's what it was. So just real quick, there is a little situation with Moldova where there is a country, I can't remember what it is, but when it was revealed what their jury points went to, there's 5 jury professionals in each country's jury, and this one country, it may have been Bulgaria, each of them gave their top 2 amount of points to exactly the same countries. And when that was revealed, it was very kind of like, what are the odds that these 5 people would necessarily do that? So okay, there may be a little bit of like here and there, but even if it was one country, even if it was 2, 3 or 4, overall, okay, they didn't win. Like, these ones that require that kind of nudging are never going to win. Yeah. So I don't, you know, we can't prove that was what happened. But either way, it still got.
But it still wouldn't have awarded her enough points to win. It's one country,
and it still wouldn't have awarded her, a fewer to drop down enough, because she clearly was just real popular because the song is a banger. So that's Moldova.
Greece and Russia and Lithuania all performed exactly as expected. I don't think there was any surprises to their performances. They were all solid, exactly how we saw in their semis.
The top 10 in general is exactly, I think, the countries we thought it would be.
Yes.
I think the only thing there, maybe Finland was a little bit of a dark horse, coming 6th. But generally speaking, if you move the order around, that's the countries that we thought was going to be there, right?
Yeah, I think all the performances as well, they were so well rehearsed. There was literally no surprises here. So there's not really a lot to talk about the quality of their performances. There was no changes.
All good.
The top 5, I wouldn't change at all. I've spoken about how France wasn't particularly for me. It's not my cup of tea. It's still brilliant. It's still fantastic. I can see the appeal. It's not for me.
I like Barbara.
It's just not for me.
Let's just talk about Malta.
So
Come on,
Malta is the one that I feel like deserves to be higher. What place did it come?
It came 7th, and the big shocker for Malta was that it only got 47 televotes. So I actually think the running order possibly may have fudged this, but I think this was probably a greiter example of people are going to vote for it, so let's not bother, because 47 is real low. I only gave it a couple of votes because I was of the same opinion.
She was lost in that running order, though. I think it was such a horrendous position for her, and this is also why people are angry, because the running order isn't random. So you can actually put blame on the producers of the show. You can actually assign blame because somebody went out of their way to specifically assign this order. And that's why people say it's not fair, because that was a shit slot to have. I think also part of it was, like you said, people thought that she would be safe, so they didn't vote. Also, I'm not sure how much this would affect things, because it was still a great vocal performance, but it was by far her weakest.
I mean, when you weigh it up, Moldova got 62 from the televotes, and Malta got 47. So people liked Moldova, though, first and foremost. People clearly liked it, so we can kind of like shove out the whole jury conspiracy thing. But the fact that Moldova got more than Malta is tricky.
It's questionable.
That's questionable. That's
questionable.
That's real fucking weird.
I'm not saying she should have won, but I felt like she should have been above Finland, at least. Like, I don't understand how she wasn't top 5.
Finland, really, people love that. So when it was the final slot for the semi they were in, and they hadn't made it. The arena were literally chanting Finland. So at that point, we were kind of like, oh shit, like people really like them. And I did say this going up to it, that I like the song. The lyrics are shite. The lyrics are embarrassing because it's kind of like an angsty teenager
And
wrote them.
seeing a lot of the extra bits that Eurovision have been doing on YouTube, seeing them in interviews and stuff, they are just kids. And every time they open their mouths, I cringe.
But my thing was, I don't think you can't really hear the lyrics on stage. So I think because the song sounds so
People
kind
just
of
like
strong,
the vibe and
people
the
will
energy.
vote for it, which they did way more than I thought they would. But that's where they placed. In sixth, and they got essentially 50 points more than Malta, which is like, if you had said that a month ago, it would have been like, fuck off.
For me, I just feel like she should have switched with Finland, and then I wouldn't have been so annoyed, because I think Iceland was a big surprise. People didn't think that they would do that well, having been only using their rehearsal. I'm happy for them. I think it was well deserved, and I'm really, really glad. But it was a surprise that people weren't thinking of when they were putting Malta in like top 5. So that's the only thing I would do, is switch her with Finland, and then the rest of it, I think I don't really have a problem with it.
I don't either. I'm very happy that Italy won, because
I mean, personally, I would have switched Switzerland and France, but that's just me personally.
Again,
I'm
they
not
both
saying
got
that they should have done.
400 points. It's so close.
That's just complete personal taste.
I read that if it was the old voting system, France would have won over Italy. You know, they only won by 25 points. It's not much, which shows how strong a year it was. We've been listening to Maneskin, that song, for months and months and months. And I don't know that when we first started to kind of really like it, if we considered that it was going to be a winner.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But, you know, I'm happy for Italy. Hasn't won since 1990. I think it would have been nice for France to win, because they haven't won since 1977, which is fucking years ago.
You know what I would love? I'd love it if they did like a Eurovision top 10 tour. How great would that be?
Like, work the world.
But like, I would love to see the top 10 from this year.
No, shut up.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, but they can do it on their own, can't they? It's the biggest stage in the world. They can do it on their own. They don't need to do it as a group tour.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine how expensive that would be. Jesus.
That'd be really cool. I'd love that.
I think that Italy and Iceland are the winners this year in terms of the kind of following they're going to get. Let's just real quick talk about this whole drug scandal thing with Italy.
There was a clip that was circulated, and it was from the live show, and it was like a B-roll shot when I think Destiny's being interviewed, and I don't know what about, but she's just being interviewed, and then it cuts to the Italy table, and Damiano, the lead singer, is leaning down seemingly towards the table.
He's so fucking hot.
And then it looks like the drummer gives him a bit of a nudge, and he comes up in like a weird way and looks around. I can totally understand, and even thought so myself at first.
When we first saw it,
looked like
we were just like
a line.
Yeah. The interesting thing that came out of that is, obviously he was like, I'll be tested. It was EB came back and they were like,
instantly, the night of when he saw this on Twitter, the band said, we will take drug tests right here, right now. That's not something a guilty person would say.
Also, people have analysed where the actual table was, where his arms were, and he's clearly not even anywhere near a surface. But it's the fact that France, or certain French media outlets, went to such lengths to try and get them. I mean,
they really
to try and fuck them over.
This story.
Because then France would have won, obviously, if Italy was disqualified, which, I mean, the whole thing is quite hilarious, isn't it?
In case people aren't aware, the explanation that's been accepted is that one of the band members smashed a glass, and Damiano was busy looking at it, and he was going to pick it up, and then I think the nudge was, you're on camera, like look alert, look aware.
But
and the Eurovision people have confirmed that after they left, there was indeed broken glass. Right,
there's a picture of it. They put pictures up.
Yeah,
but there's
also a little picture of the table during this bit that circulated, and people said it looks like a little bag of Coke. If you actually look at it in HD, it's so clearly a piece of paper. So that is also bullshit.
It's the length that, the whole thing is a bit hilarious, but also how fucking disgraceful that those kind of it was a lot of French outlets, obviously, because they were the ones that would have benefited most from it, but how willing they were to try and like destroy them essentially, just to get the win, which is just gross.
There's been a combination of, I think...
Be happy with second.
I think a lot of the acts are really have a good sense of like camaraderie, and like Goe, for instance, has said that they want to, they're trying their best to collaborate with Montaigne, with Blind Channel, with John's Tears and Måneskin, which I think is so cool that they're actually going out of their way to make it happen beyond words. But on the flip side of that, there's been a lot of bitterness from certain countries. The German entry, Jendrik, has just gone on Twitter today to like apologise for his drunken interviews afterwards, because he started banging on about how many followers he's got and how it was just embarrassing. And he's basically done this sort of video saying like, just remind me to never do an interview after I've had alcohol ever again, and he apologised.
And then
he said Tuse's also
from Sweden also was a bit tricky, and he said something on the lines of, well, I did my job, the voters didn't do theirs. You know,
Romania as well, like their delegation basically said like, oh, they blamed her and they took it so seriously, and they said she didn't do good enough. And
I think
the UK have been horrendous.
The pressure was so intense because we obviously didn't have last year, and people were really, I mean, they had been preparing for 2 years, so the tensions were so high that I think you can kind of, you know, give them take it with a pinch of salt. They're also so young. A lot of them are so young.
Yeah.
Tuse is how old a teenager, I think.
I think he's 18.
Imagine being thrust
17,
into a worldwide spotlight while she's also studying for like a driving test or something. Apparently in Italy at the moment, there are a bunch of venues who are really trying to gun for it, even though they don't meet the requirements at all and are clearly just doing it for like attention. I did read that somewhere. That's not a kind of an
I'm
opinion
sure
of mine.
it'll be in Rome.
Overall, very happy that Italy won.
I'd love to go next year, and we've been to Rome, so I'd love it if it wasn't in Rome. I'd love it if it was somewhere else.
I don't want to go.
Like Milan would be so cool. Can you imagine going to Milan?
I've been to Milan. I didn't like it.
Oh, I've never been before.
You know what?
But we've done Rome.
Milan, I think I had the worst pizza in my life in Milan.
Oh, not this.
I think about that all the time. It was the first time I'd ever been to Italy, and I was going to have a pizza in Italy. Oh my God, it was shit. God, it was dry. I couldn't believe it. I could have done better going down to Waitrose for a Dr. Urquhart. At least that would have been moist. I would just like to say, I still love Leslie Roy for Ireland. I think she did a very admirable job. Yeah. I am very happy that Italy won. And even though Sunit did not improve San Marino's score overall, which I'm still absolutely fascinated by that.
She should still be very proud of herself. It was a brilliant performance. I think she's got a lot to be proud of.
She can be proud of the fact that she was the performer for San Marino who, for the first time ever, got 12 points for San Marino. They've never got 12 points before.
Who was that from?
Oh, it was from Poland. Gave them 12, and I'm just so thrilled for her. So she achieved that. We finally heard the words 12 points to San Marino.
Yeah.
Love that. So please jump in the comments.
We loved this. I think it's been the best year
think.
for a long time, and I'm just so excited now to do it all again next year.
What the fuck is... There's no way in hell next year can be as messy as this.
I don't know if the UK still have a contract with BMG for their artists, but there are so many people on BMG. It still blows my mind that we chose James Newman. I still don't understand that.
I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy, but next year... Let's not send a man. Let's send a female performer.
I don't want a drag race band either. I want a pop star, a female pop star,
musician, established,
or a girl band. Like that would also be great.
Oh yeah, well listen, we'll talk. Let us know what you think.
Send the Sugar Babes. They've just made a comeback. Send the Sugar Babes. That'd be great.
Don't send the Sugar Babes.
Or Steps.
Don't, for fuck's sake! I can't believe you've done that. I'm so angry. Don't send Steps.
I think the Sugar Babes could do well with the right song.
Who can sing? Little Mix can sing. They're too big though now, right?
Need it. Yeah,
they're too big.
They wouldn't do it.
They got great voices though. That's what I need. We need someone with sick voices. Some of the vocals is shit. Let's talk about Destiny, Hurricane. Considering how much they move around, they can move around like that and still sing like that.
Fucking
and James Newman stood there and sounded like that. We need someone who's got that kind of like joie de vivre.
Yeah.
So anyway, listen. Thank you for coming. Social media is on the screen at the moment. So there'll be a message afterwards if you'd like to join the Patron. There's also a link in the description for these gorgeous Lavolier.
Say thank you so much to Niwa.
I think you pronounce it Niwa. That's how I always said it. I don't know how else you fucking say it. Lavolier.
No.
Jacqueline Fourier. Queen's music.
Join the Patron, we'll do a shot of Patron.